Well, today we're going to talk about fresh plant extract and dry plant extract, and we're going to use Yerba Mansa to illustrate and talk about the differences and aspects. Yerba Mansa, Anemopsis californica, is one of my favorite all-time herbal medicines. I mean, there's literally hundreds and hundreds of uses for this plant, whether you use the root or whether you use the leaf. It can be used in fresh extracts, dry extracts, dried for salves and oils, and just on and on and on. Just about every herbal pharmacy technique can incorporate Yerba Mansa as a plant medicine. Today we're going to do Yerba Mansa, the fresh root extract, 1:2 ratio. Remember, almost all fresh plant extracts are done at a 1:2 ratio, and in this case we're going to use 100 grams of the chopped root of Yerba Mansa, and it's done at a 1:2 ratio, so 100 grams of the root, which means we need 200 milliliters of alcohol, and the alcohol percent that we're using is 95%. And we are using organic alcohol from a company called Alchemical Solutions, which provides really good top quality organic alcohol. And they have it as 190 proof, and all you need to do is divide by 2 to get the percentage of alcohol. So it's 190 proof divided by 2 equals 95% alcohol. And I've covered this in a previous video. But here we're using Yerba Mansa, the fresh root, uniformly chopped up for the most part, and then I always take a whatever that thing's called, a funnel, and it helps to do it this way so that we can get all the material in there. The fresh root of Yerba Mansa is one of my preferred ways of using this plant, because there are so many aromatic, medicinal aromatic oils and resins in this plant, and so I want to capture those, and I want to have them in my finished herbal extract. It's very important because they create vasodilation, they're antibacterial, antifungal, antiseptic, antimicrobial. They're just those oils in Yerba Mansa. One of them is called thymol, and thymol is a phenomenal antifungal and antibacterial oil that is in Yerba Mansa. It's also found in rosemary and sage and other plants, thyme especially. But here's all the chopped up roots of Yerba Mansa. And remember, that was 100 grams of the chopped up root, and we're going to need 200 milliliters of alcohol at 95%. Remember, 1:2 is basically just times the grams, by 2 to get the amount of liquid by volume. It's a fairly simple, straightforward ratio. You're just doubling, but you're converting over to a liquid measurement. Let's say, for instance, you had 1 ounce of fresh Yerba Mansa roots. This is for the non-metric folks, and just another reference. But if you had 1 ounce of the fresh root, you would need 2 ounces by liquid volume measurement of the alcohol. And so here we have the alcohol already measured out at 200 milliliters. And if you can see, let's go down here, you can see the alcohol is covering all the herb material. So it was a really well done 1:2 fresh plant extract. You want all the alcohol to cover the plant material, and then we will put a lid on it, and we'll put a label on it in a little bit. So I'm not going into extreme detail on the fresh root extract, because we've covered that in other videos about how to make fresh plant extracts. But here's an example of using fresh Yerba Mansa roots that have been chopped up and following the classic equation of a 1 to 2 fresh plant extract. And we had 100 grams of fresh root, and we needed 200 milliliters of alcohol at 95%. And we got our alcohol from Alchemical Solutions, and it comes as 190 proof, and we divide by 2 and we get 95% alcohol. And 95% alcohol is extremely efficient in making fresh plant extracts. It's like that's a high enough of a percentage of alcohol to literally dehydrate and pull out all the constituents that we want to acquire from fresh plant material. Anytime you make a fresh plant material, you want to use the highest percentage of alcohol as you possibly can, because the plant already has water in it. The molecular structure of the plant is already kind of swelled up and tight, and we need pretty much a strong solvent to penetrate the fresh plant state. So that's why in fresh plant extracts we never add water to the extract process. It's 1 part herb to 2 parts highest percentage of alcohol that you can get. In this case it's 95%. But that's the fresh plant extract of the wonderful Yerba Mansa. Okay, now we're going to move into our for the online class that I'm teaching. This will be our first demonstration of a dry plant extract, which has different principles, different things going on, different ratio. And then in this case we're going to use the dry leaf, the leaf of Yerba Mansa. And we're going to use the dry leaf and the dry flower tops, and we're going to crush it all up as small as we can get it. In this case, the Yerba Mansa leaf is really delicate, so it really doesn't take a whole lot of pulverizing or crushing. In fact, it can all be done by hand. For the most part, to get it down to the size that we need for extraction here. You could put this in a Vitamix or a blender and reduce it down more, get it more even and more consistent. But I'm kind of showing you like a dry plant extract with the least amount of apparatuses and the least amount of equipment, so that you can realize how easy it is to do a dry plant extract. The thing is, I would probably pulverize this down, put it in a Vitamix and break it down just a tad bit more, but I'm not going to do that here today, because this is actually still going to make a fine medicine extract. And so that's the crushed up leaves of the Yerba Mansa. So with a dry plant extract, in this case we're doing Yerba Mansa, Anomopsis californica. It's a dry leaf or plant extract, dry leaf or plant material. It could have been Yerba Mansa roots, it could have been, in this case it's just the leaf, but so we're just calling it dry leaf / plant extract. It's dry plants are done at a 1 to 5 ratio. And they are, you know, the basic difference between a fresh plant extract and a dry plant extract is that when we do a fresh plant extract, it's done at a 1 to 2 ratio, and we do not add any water to it. The plant in a fresh state already has water in it. The dry plant extract is done at a 1 to 5 ratio, and it's 1 part herb material to 5 parts alcohol and water. And so essentially, here's to give you an example. 1 part herb or plant material to 5 parts alcohol and water. And so in this case, the Yerba Mansa, we're doing 100 grams of the crushed up leaf, 100 grams. And because it is a 1 to 5, we need 500 milliliters of the alcohol and water combination. And in this case, I've chosen to use 60% alcohol to represent the 500 milliliters, and the remaining will be 40% water. So the 500 milliliters, basically, once again, 1 to 5, 5 times the amount of material, 5 times 100 gives us 500 milliliters of liquid measured by volume of the alcohol and water. In this case, 60% of this number is going to be alcohol, and 40% of this number is going to be water. And how we figure out the amount is just some basic math, which is I do 500 times 60%, gives us 300 milliliters of alcohol that we're going to need, and 40% of the water is 500 times 40% gives us 200 milliliters. Add those two numbers together, you get 500, and it should always match the 1 to 5 ratio base liquid measurement number. I'm trying to keep this as simple as possible. It is such a simple technique. Basically, we need to add water to dry plant material, and we are approximating the rehydration of the dry material to a somewhat of a fresh plant state. That is the main difference between a 1 to 2 fresh plant extract or a 1 to 5 dry plant extract, is we need to add some water to reconstitute the plant to somewhat of a fresh plant state so that we can get maximum solvency. Because in a lot of plants there are water soluble constituents that need to come out, and alcohol helps to pull out a lot of constituents, a lot of medicinal chemicals, you know, the constituents that we're after as a medicine. But we need to rehydrate the plant so that we get the water soluble constituents as well. So here we have a Yerba Mansa dry leaf extract done at a 1 to 5 ratio, and we're using 100 grams of the chopped up dry leaf. And so we do 5 times 100 gives us 500 milliliters of an alcohol water combination that we need. And I chose 60% alcohol. And the reason why I chose 60% is because for most leaf and flower material in the dry state, 60% alcohol is usually enough to pull out most of the medicinal constituents that we're after. This is for dry leaf and dry flower. If we were using Yerba Mansa roots that were dry, I might bump up the alcohol percentage to 70% alcohol and then 30% water, and this would be for the dry roots of Yerba Mansa, because the roots have more resins and more oils and more constituents that need a little bit more percentage of alcohol for better extraction. But when you're dealing with dry plant material that is light in consistency, like leaves and flowers, 60% alcohol is usually enough. Now, there are many books called Materia Medicas, and there are many dispensatories, and for over 150 years, herbalists and physicians and pharmaceutical companies that used to make herbal extracts figured out the best percentages of alcohol to use depending on which plant you were talking about. And so a lot of this is already known information and listed in things called Materia Medicas, where they actually tell you the percentage of alcohol that's actually preferred. And so keep that in mind, that if you wonder, like, how much alcohol do I use? Well, if you go on the internet or you have these old Materia Medicas and such, you will actually find this information for Echinacea, Golden Seal, Yerba Mansa, Comfrey, etc., etc., etc. It's already been figured out what are the best percentages of alcohol. And in general, if you don't have a Materia Medica and you do not have a resource that already shows the percentages that are preferred, then here would be my general rule of thumb, my general rule to go by, which would be like for light material, like flower material that's dry, or leaf material that's dry, if you start with 60% alcohol, you will most likely end up with a really, really nice dry plant extract, because 60% pure alcohol, or 95% alcohol in this case, is enough of a percentage of alcohol to actually get 90 to 99% of extraction to take place. If you are using barks, roots, plants that are heavy with alkaloids and really hard chemistry that is not water soluble, like alkaloid material, like in case, like let's say like in the case of golden seal, the color golden, the golden color of golden seal root powder, and I think almost everyone has seen that. That is a alkaloid constituent called berberine, and berberine is yellow in color, and berberine is not water soluble that much. So if you were to make an extract with a plant that had a lot of alkaloids in it, you would want to bump up the percentage of alcohol to maybe 70 or 80% in the dry plant extract. So things that are leafy, things that are delicate, things that are, break down easily, like flowers and leaves, usually only need 60% alcohol. If you're doing roots, barks, things that are laden with alkaloids and heavy chemistry, then you want to bump up your percentage of alcohol to 70 or 80%. And that's where those materia medicas come in handy. But let's say you don't have them. Let's say I was doing, here we just did a fresh plant, a fresh root extract of Yerba Mansa, and we used 95% pure alcohol, as you would for a 1 to 2 fresh plant extract. But if I was doing dry Yerba Mansa roots, I would bump that up to 70 and maybe even 80% of this ratio formula would be, I bump my alcohol percentage up, just because I know by the natural order of things that roots and barks require more alcohol. So even if I didn't have a materia medica, I still could approximate a good usage of solvency by adjusting the percentage of alcohol. So here we have the crushed up Yerba Mansa leaf all ready to go. And remember, we're doing a 1 to 5 dry plant extract, and we had 100 grams in the jar, and we need 500 milliliters of alcohol and water, and in this case 60% was alcohol and 40% was water, and it's already been pre-measured out, and I'm going to pour it. And I kind of have to let it, all the airspace kind of come out of it, but you can see that the plant material is going to get pretty much all covered. We're going to put the lid on. So here is the 1 to 5 fresh plant, 1 to 5 dry plant extract, and we used up that entire jar, and the material is kind of loose, and everything is covered at the very top. So all the material is covered, and Yerba Mansa 1 to 5 dry leaf extract, and done on this date. And here's the fresh root extract, done 1 to 2 fresh root, and done on this date. And keeping the plant material covered, keeping these extracts in the jar for 7 to 10 days is the general rule. I teach my students that if you need medicine in an emergency, you can, after 48 hours, you can siphon off a little bit of the material and use it in that formula, or use it by itself if necessary. And that usually within 48 hours, 90% of all the constituents are already out of the plant material. the general consensus among herbalists and practitioners and people who are medicine makers is leave it in the jars for 7 to 10 days before you strain it all out and decant it. And the fresh root material is already having and turning a really nice color. And the dry plant material, hard to see, but it too is sort of changing color a little bit. But to recap real quickly, the fresh root was done at a 1:2 ratio, and we used 100 grams of root material to 200 milliliters of alcohol, and we used the 95% organic alcohol. And we chopped the plant material up and covered it up with the 200 milliliters. And could have easily have been 1 ounce of fresh root to 2 ounces of alcohol by volume for in the use of a non-metric concept. But the dry leaf is done at a 1:5 ratio, and the main difference between fresh plant extracts and dry plants is that we need to add a little water to try to approximate the fresh plant state of this dry material. And in this case it's 1:5, 1 part of the herb plant material to 5 parts alcohol and water. And for this specific extract, it was 100 grams of the crushed leaf was used of Yerba Mansa and put into the jar. And because it's a 1:5 extract, we took the number 5 and times it by the amount of material, and we ended up with needing 500 milliliters by a volume measurement, 500 milliliters of alcohol and water. Once again, if we wanted to do metric or non-metric, non-metric would be like 1 ounce of dry leaf to 2 ounces of alcohol water combination by volume. And then you just have to do the math. And in this case, we wanted 60% alcohol, and I times 60% times 500 and gives me 300 milliliters and of this, and 40% is going to be water, and so I times the overall amount by 40%, came up with 200, and gives us a total of 500 milliliters, and that number should match. That is what you mix together and put it into your jar over your dry plant material, and you are done with a dry plant extract. Remember, some of the general concepts is that this percentage of alcohol is 60% is really good for leaves and flowers. But if you were to do barks and roots and plants that have heavy alkaloids and really hard to remove chemistry, that usually only alcohol can get that chemistry out, then you can refer to a materia medica. In this case, I use Michael Moore's materia medica a lot for my southwestern plants and for a lot of the American plants in general. You can go to his website at the Southwest School of Botanical Medicine and actually access this pamphlet, this materia medica, which has lots of percentages of different. Here's an example of catnip. Catnip, if you're going to he recommends that you can do a fresh plant extract of catnip, and that's done to 1:2 ratio. We don't have to cite percentages because we know that a 1:2 ratio is pure alcohol, or 95% or greater. But he also cites for the dry herb 1:5, a 1:5 ratio, and for catnip 50% alcohol is sufficient for a dry plant extract of catnip. And you find this kind of information in the materia medica or at his website. And I'm not sure 100%, but I think you might even be able to print this out, the entire materia medica, so that you have a reference point on when and how to use percentages of alcohol depending on plant material. And pretty soon you'll get a feel for the fact that leaves and flowers usually are 50-60% alcohol. I always just stick with 60% myself. But in the case where he cited catnip leaf, you could use 50% alcohol. But and then you'll see that in time that things that are heavy, things that are barks and resins and roots, usually require more percentage of alcohol in the extraction process. But Yerba Mansa is requires a whole conversation onto itself, but it is one of the great anti-inflammatories that there is in the herbal world, and using anti-inflammatories in most chronic illnesses and diseases is my first approach in helping to create change within the body. So I love Yerba Mansa as a fresh root extract or as a dry leaf extract. It's either way, it's a very, very effective medicine, and I hope this demonstration made a little bit more sense in the herbal pharmacy techniques that are out there, and in time it will make total sense. You just have to keep watching and keep learning and keep watching and keep learning. Thank you, and I'm Michael Cottingham, and this has been a Voyage Botanica medicine making class here on using Yerba Mansa as our demonstrative herb, and using a fresh plant root extract and a dry leaf 1 to 5 extract of Yerba Mansa. Thank you for watching.